Welcome to this training session where we will be discussing the use of LogZilla triggers. For those who may not be familiar, LogZilla is a network event orchestrator. Essentially, LogZilla monitors streams of information such as log files, deduplicates, filters, and parses the log event messages, and then reacts to these events in real time. This reaction can range from sending out email alerts to automatically remedying problem conditions. In this video, we will focus on how LogZilla triggers can both notify you about events and respond to them. The fundamental concept of LogZilla is to provide you with a snapshot of the health and status of your systems, networks, and servers based on the log messages they generate. It also allows you to receive notifications of key events and to respond to these key events. One of the key features that LogZilla offers to achieve this is the LogZilla triggers. LogZilla monitors event streams such as log files, and you can configure LogZilla to identify specific events within these streams and then react to them. This reaction can range from simply making a note about the event to automatically handling and remedying the event. This is achieved through the use of triggers. The term trigger is derived from the fact that upon identification of an event of interest, LogZilla's response is triggered, which causes the response to occur. You need to instruct LogZilla on what the event of interest will look like and what action should be taken when that event occurs. This is achieved by creating LogZilla triggers, and we will now walk you through the process. We will begin at the default LogZilla starting point, which is a dashboard. At the top of the dashboard, there is a button for triggers. Clicking on this button will take you to the triggers page, where you will see a list of existing triggers, if any. We will create a new one. The first step is to name the trigger. This can be any descriptive text you choose and does not affect the operation of the trigger. The next step is to set up the event filter. This is how you configure which events will activate the trigger and cause it to fire. LogZilla's search and filtering capabilities are powerful and have several points of interest. We have covered these details in a separate video and in the application help section for using the dashboard, search syntax, but we will provide a brief overview here. As is typical for LogZilla filter definition, you first have the option for text matching. This can be as simple as looking for a specific word, or you can use wildcards and operators to specify more advanced matches. Text matching will search the entire log message contents for a match to the text you specify. In this blank box, you would enter the text match. For a text match, you use LogZilla's search syntax, as described in the online help section for using the dashboard. Search syntax. In brief, you enter multiple words or tokens, separated by spaces. LogZilla treats each token as its own match condition, and all tokens must be matched for the complete match to occur. For example, if the log message text says state change to off, if you put in a match for state space off, then it will match because the two tokens, state and off, both match in the log message. If you put in your match for state space on, it will not match because although state is there, on is not. If you want to match two words specifically together, space separated, then your matching closes the two words or phrase in double quotes. You can also use Boolean logic, meaning and, or, and not, to do particular optional or required combinations. There are symbols for the Boolean operators in the online help section for using the dashboard. Search syntax. It's important to note that tokens must match fully as specified. In our example, if we ask for a match for sta but not for state, it will not match because the token sta does not actually match the word state. If you want to have partial or wildcard specifications, use the asterisk wildcard to allow matching on any characters in that part of the token. For example, if we specify a match for state asterisk, then that will in fact match with state. You can use the asterisk wildcards in any position of the token, whether it be at the front, the middle, or the end, to allow matching sequences at the corresponding location. Again, this is covered in online help section for using the dashboard, search syntax. After defining the event filter, we need to tell LogZilla what to do when the trigger fires. There are multiple options, and if you specify more than one, then they will all occur. The first option is to mark the event as actionable or non-actionable. These states are internal to LogZilla and are used just as a notice to you and other LogZilla users that the event has been categorized as to whether something should be done about it. The default is not specified, so that's what events come in as. But you can choose to either deliberately set it to needs action or does not need action. The second option is to send an email. Here you specify one or more email addresses, and the emails will be sent individually to each recipient you specify. Text for both the email subject and body, but you also have the ability to use LogZilla placeholders or variables. These placeholders are used by including the placeholder name in double curly brackets. For example, the default email subject is to specify the word LogZilla, followed by a number that is internal to LogZilla that acts as the ID for the specific event for this email. This is specified by putting event ID inside the double curly bracket. Similarly, there is a box for message body, and its default is to put specifically the words event message, followed by the actual log message text contents. This is specified by putting event message inside the double curly brackets. You'll notice that the placeholder IDs start with event, because these are referring to information about the particular event happening with the trigger. At present, all available placeholders do start with event. The available placeholders are listed here. They include the syslog field for host, that is the originator of the log message packet. The syslog field for severity, which will end up being one of the defined and standardized severity values. The syslog field for facility, which is similarly one of a set of defined and standardized values. The syslog field for program, which is the name for the particular running process that originally generated the log message. The Cisco mnemonic field, which is as described in the Cisco documentation, is the Cisco specified message type identifier for the specific event, the snare ID, which is deprecated, the message, which is the actual log message text, which is not standardized and will completely differ from one log source type to another, and then two values for event first occurrence and event last occurrence. These last two are calculated by LogZilla for use of the events that are occurring repetitively. As they say, they will indicate the first and last times that this particular event message is seen by LogZilla. So for either the message subject or body, you can put any plain text desired in any set or combination of the placeholders. Let's go ahead and enter that for ourselves. We've changed the text in the subject box. The next trigger option is to send a webhook. A webhook is a user-defined HTTP callback. This means that it is a callback or remote function request that is performed over HTTP. It can be defined by you, the user. The idea is that webhooks are used to signal from one system to another that some event has occurred or some action should be taken. For LogZilla, the purpose is to allow a trigger to automatically invoke functionality in some other system. Since this is over HTTP, you define the webhook by specifying the HTTP request that will be combined with this event to tell the remote system what has happened or what should be done. The first part is the HTTP method for the transmission, which is either going to be GET or POST. The requirement for this option is determined by the provider of the system being contacted, so they should tell you what to use. Next is the endpoint address, which is the host name or IP address of the remote system being configured. Then is the query string template, which contains both a constant part that informs the remote system of what kind of event is happening or function should be performed, and a variable part that has information about this particular event that will be of interest to the remote system. This is going to make an HTTP URL for this web request. In the case of JIT webhooks, the entire communication is the HTTP request itself, basically the URL being used to contact the remote server. So in that case, any unique information regarding the LogZilla event must be contained in that URL. The way we accomplish this is to use the LogZilla placeholder tokens. You can send the host field of the event to the webhook provider as follows. The same applies for the other placeholders, such as program, event ID, and so on. Webhooks generally do not have to specify data information on the query string. Post requests send a message body along with the request. So for LogZilla, we have to specify what message body we want to use. And here again, we use placeholders for events. This is an example that would be used to communicate with Slack. Slack provides a web app for users and the public to programmatically send messages to Slack channels. We need to tell LogZilla how to use this endpoint. Slack uses post requests, so besides indicating that, there are the other three pieces of information we'll put in. We use the standard Slack webhook URL for this function. Unlike as necessary for a GET request, it isn't required to use placeholders for the query string. Instead, all event-specific information is sent in the post message template, which is what we have to configure in our trigger. This is a combination of constant text along with the data specific to each individual event that gets sent to the webhook provider to inform of the event or cause something to happen. Generally, this is done using JSON. And as you can see, I have already constructed the message template as JSON. You'll notice that the JSON message template includes JSON variables for which the values are particulars of each individual message. As you see here, the text JSON variable is set to a LogZilla placeholder specific event message. When the post request message body is constructed by LogZilla, when each event is triggered, LogZilla will use the JSON template. Notifications in LogZilla are intrinsically linked to the events they are associated with. They rely on the event data for their content. In some cases, you might want to add more context or information to an event. This is where the Add Note action comes in handy. By adding a note, you can ensure that when the event is viewed in the notifications, any additional information you've added is readily available. The final action option we have is Execute Script. This is a powerful feature that allows LogZilla to automatically respond to and remediate events and conditions it's monitoring. When you choose this option, the trigger will execute arbitrary scripts on the LogZilla server. These scripts can then interact with your servers, routers, and other devices to initiate a response activity. To use this feature, you need to specify the name of the script you want to run, and optionally a Docker image in which to run the script. The Docker image provides a convenient way to manage any dependencies your script might have. However, Docker scripting is a bit more complex than the other trigger actions, so we've dedicated a separate video to cover it in depth. Now let's put these actions into practice and set up a trigger. Once the trigger is set, we wait for it to fire. When it does, you'll see the notifications that the trigger has created. Let's take a look at the emails. These are the emails that the trigger has generated. In conclusion, LogZilla triggers are a powerful tool. They offer a wide range of capabilities, from sending alert emails to initiating complex automated interactions. These interactions could involve communicating with network devices or other systems to remediate issues. If you have any questions or need further clarification, please don't hesitate to reach out to us through our website, LogZilla.net. We're always here to help. Thank you for watching this training video.